bit deeper into these games with a three-time Pro Bowler and the 2010 NFL Man of the Year, former Chiefs and Jets fullback Tony Richardson. T-Rich, good to see you once again.
Good to see you as well.
All right, so the Final Four is set, and there is one common thread here between these four, and that is they each have a premier quarterback. You've got two surefire Hall of Famers, obviously, in Brady and Manning, and then the two guys who are tied for the second most touchdown passes this year in Newton and Carson Palmer. Does this surprise you at all that it's a quarterback-driven league and it's led by these four quarterbacks?
No, not at all, because, I look back on my career and the thing about it, it always starts from the quarterback. I mean, you can have a stellar offense, you can have a stellar defense, but if you don't have a quarterback, and particularly a Hall of Fame type quarterback throwing the ball and kind of orchestrating your team, then you really don't have a chance.
Yeah, but things have really changed, though, in the past 5 years since you retired, actually. I mean, don't forget, everybody, he led 9 straight years you led a running back to a 1,000-yard season. Fullbacks were so important in the NFL for a number of years, and now it seems like the second rushing option is the quarterback. Do you think that the pendulum is ever going to swing back to running backs being dominating?
I mean, I think running backs are definitely going to be dominating. I mean, the thing about it is, like, this is the first year we saw 2 running backs actually go in the first round, which, in the last few years we hadn't seen running backs get drafted in the first round at all. But the quarterbacks right now, they control the game, they control the league, because there's nothing worse than a running quarterback, because all of a sudden you build this thing, you're going to stop all the passes, you're going to stop the run, and all of a sudden the quarterback gets out and scrambles for a first down. That is demoralizing for a defending defense.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Of the 4 guys that are left, let's say that you've got a team and you need a quarterback, and of the 4 guys that are left, which is the guy right now that you'd want leading your way into the postseason?
Well, everyone would probably think I would say Cam Newton, because I'm wearing my orange tie and I'm an Auburn guy and he's an Auburn guy. But right now, if I'm going into the playoffs, the one guy I would definitely start my football team with is Tom Brady. I know that's going to make a lot of people mad in Jets Nation. It's going to make a lot of people mad here in New York City. But Tom Brady has been there. He's done that. He's proven. I mean, think about it. Technically, he could almost have 6 Super Bowl rings. He has 4.
Right.
I'm going with Tom Brady.
But speaking of your Auburn alum, I mean, you texted me earlier. The Seahawks just ran in. They walked into a beehive.
Exactly.
That's exactly what you said. But let's talk a little bit about how Cam runs this offense, because it's different really than any other offense I've seen in the NFL. They run a vertical offense, and he has the ability to extend these series with his legs.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is what makes him so dangerous is, well, number one, he's bigger than half everyone on the football field. But not only
that, 250.
Yeah, he's about 6. There's a statue of him on campus.
That was your playing weight.
I know,
241.
Right? Well, I wasn't 6. I'm not 6'6". I wish I was. I'd be playing basketball. But anyway, he has the ability, obviously as a running back. But now he has a field general, being that guy can stand in the pocket, deliver the tough pass, hit it, pass on the dime. He's just an all-around quarterback, and he's a nightmare if you're on defense.
And remember, he's the young quarterback out of all the other guys. The other guys are like 34, 35, 38 years old.
I take it.
And sometimes, exactly. Sometimes the young guys aren't always the best. Larry Fitzgerald is 34, and by wide receiver years, Fitz is a very old guy. For 12 years, he has maintained the top level, and this year he's had a career year. You've known him since he was a child. What is it about his story that makes him so special?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was actually about to date myself. When I was in Kansas City, we used to do our training camp against the Vikings in Mankato, and I remember this kid always around. And his dad, Larry's dad, was actually a beat writer for the Vikings, and he was just always around. He was catching balls with Chris Carter, Randy Moss, and things of that nature. And so all of a sudden, as I started to see, I kept hearing about this guy. There's no reason why he's successful, because he put the time in. Obviously, he learned from Hall of Famers, but he's a guy that's done it consistently year after year after year. Even when they were saying the last couple of years ago that, this guy's on his way out of the league, what does he do? He goes out in his second half and goes out for 140 yards and, and a touchdown. I mean, he's just he's a guy that I kind of look up to, because, he's just done it the right way.
You played in Kansas City, of course, which is near St. Louis, which just lost an NFL team for the second time. The owner said that this was a city that just cannot handle 3 professional teams. Are there certain cities that just can't handle an NFL team?
Well, I definitely think there's certain cities. I would say that St. Louis is a city that could, because the thing about it, they're not too far removed from winning the Super Bowl, and I think he was pretty satisfied with having a team there and the fans that supported him. But I do think the lack of big business in certain markets and having that discretionary income. Obviously, times are tough. The market was down 400 points the other day. So the times are tough, and people if you don't have a place where a corporation is back, where there's a lot of jobs and a lot of income coming into that city, it's going to be very difficult to keep an NFL franchise.
I want to talk about the Wlny rule here because this was obviously created to help minorities land head coaching positions, but a recent study shows that there has been no discernible increase in minorities gaining those head coaching jobs. Is this rule right now just a Band-Aid on a bigger problem?
Yeah, it really is, and I do think that we've made progress from the fact that that a minority has to be interviewed. But if you look at it, I look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, obviously there was a head coaching vacancy that was open, and the first interview, or probably the first or second, was Deuce Staley, the running back. You really think they were going to give him that football, job? Not being a coordinator, there was no way he was going to get that opportunity. Now, great for him because he got the interview, but I think that's something to say. Okay, we have to interview a minority. We have one on our staff. Let's go ahead and interview him. I think, listening to Hugh Jackson and listening to his press conference and the comments he made afterwards, in order for a minority, because you can say, oh, you have to be a coordinator, but it has to be a coordinator that's dealing with the quarterback. And that's what you're kind of seeing. He said the biggest thing that helped me was I was hands-on with every place I've been with a quarterback, and that's what obviously got him the job in Cleveland.
So the study also says that the average white coach takes 9 years from the beginning of his NFL career to make it to a coordinator's position.
Exactly.
For a minority, it's 14 years. Is the bigger problem maybe that the Wlny rule needs to be extended into the coordinator's positions as well?
Well, it definitely should. I mean, that's you mean the assistant coaches?
Sure.
Because obviously for the coordinators are now getting the opportunity. But there again, is it?
But fewer opportunities. There are only 2 minority offensive coordinators in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and that's a sad thing because the thing about it is if you're a defensive coordinator, because I was obviously with Mike Tomlin and he was our defensive coordinator when I was in Minnesota, and he was actually the last interview, and I think he got the interview because of the Wlny rule. But the thing about it, he was so prepared, he was ready to roll. When he walked into that Pittsburgh interview, he wowed him and he got the job. Now I don't really believe an offensive coordinator who hadn't really worked, who's not really calling the plays. He could be under an offensive-minded coach, but if he's not a guy that's actually calling the plays and making the decisions and helping the quarterback, I don't think he's going to get that position.
All right, we have 30 seconds here, but there has been a move here towards younger coaches. Brandon Jacobs, I was talking to him earlier. He said that it's because you got to handle some of these young guys with kid gloves. Okay, so is relatability now more valuable than experience as a head coach?
Well, I think it is. I mean, unfortunately now it's a different day. I remember when I first came into the National Football League a long time ago. The thing about it, there was a level of respect. The young guys that came into the league, they respected their elders, they respected their coaches. Where nowadays, these kids are coming in and it's all about me. What can you do for me? And so I do think you have to have a young-minded coach. They can almost, and it's sad to say you got to kind of, deal with these guys, but you do have to have a guy that kind of can understand their generation and that me generation and kind of, coach these guys along.
He is one of the greatest fullbacks to ever suit up in the NFL. Tony Richardson, great to have you in studio. Thanks so much for all of your insights.
Thanks so much for having me tonight.
All right. Well.